All right, guys, welcome back. This is the JE Live Show with, of course, JE, which is Jake Ellenbogen, and that is me. I am joined here by a guest and a friend of mine on Twitter. We've now finally met face-to-face. Ron Clements, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jake.
Absolutely.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So, Ron, let my my listeners, my viewers, the fan base know who you are, what you've done, and talk a little bit about your book.
Well, you can see the poster behind me. The book is called A Sports Fan's Guide to Route 66. The cover photo there is Soldier Field in Chicago. And believe it or not, that is a cell phone photo. My wife took this with her phone.
Oh, wow.
On September 25th, 2019. September 29th, rather. September 29th, 2019. The Bears played the Vikings, and my wife is from Peoria, Illinois, so she's a Bears fan. She was happy that the Bears won that day. I am from Wisconsin, so I'm a Packers fan, so a little bit of a split household there. But I started working as a sports writer back in 1999 in North Carolina. I was still active duty Marines then. When I got out in 2001, after doing some freelance stuff for 2 years, I had a full-time job lined up in New Bern, and then I finally decided to go to college in 2003. Went to East Carolina University, graduated in 2006. I was there the same time Chris Johnson was there, and that was kind of cool. Saw Chris Long's Virginia team lose to East Carolina in person in Greenville, North Carolina. When I started covering the Rams in St. Louis in 2009, I was sure to point out that fact to Chris because he was on the Rams then. Anyway, my last full-time job, though, is I was working as an NFL writer at Sporting News in Charlotte, but I quit in 2018 when my wife and I decided to get an RV, and we've been full-time RVers since. We are currently in Needles, California, where it is, at last check, 111 degrees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But in 2018, though, we went to all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums in a single season. We were living in Charlotte, so we went down to Florida for spring training in March, and then did opening day in Miami, and then up the East Coast, and then west, and down the West Coast, and we finished in St. Louis in September of that year. And that was the topic of book number 1. That was called Home Run on Wheels. So A Sports Fan's Guide to Route 66 is my second book. And Men's Journal magazine named it one of the best 20 new books of 2021. And I tell you what, being on a list with James Patterson, Seth Rogen, Stacey Abrams, Mitch Albom, some really well-known people, that's rather humbling to be on the same list with those guys. But the book's official release date was August 3rd. It's got about 300 photos in it, almost all of which were taken by either me or my wife. I already talked about the cover photo. I did about 60 interviews with the book. I was able to get media credentials at some college and professional and high school events along the way. The Los Angeles Lakers were gracious enough to give me a media credential for the book, so I interviewed LeBron James for this book.
That's awesome.
But also the team historian for the Chicago Blackhawks, the track president at Chicagoland Speedway for those NASCAR folks, the media relations guy at the Gateway Speedway outside of St. Louis. Also the media relations person at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame in Springfield, Missouri, which is an awesome place. Got a bunch of statues outside. Stan Musial, Norm Stewart, Jackie Stiles. Anyway, I'm really, really proud of the book. And I also interviewed a bunch of high school and college athletics directors and coaches. I personally attended a Chicago Blackhawks game, a Chicago Bears game, a St. Louis Blues game, Edwardsville, Illinois high school football game, Hinsdale South football game. I was supposed to go to a Hinsdale Central football game, but it got rained out. And then, let's see here. The University of Tulsa football game, Oklahoma City Thunder game,
So much.
Northern Arizona football game, University of New Mexico men's and women's basketball game, a UCLA football and basketball game. Those are my first ever visits to the Rose Bowl and Pauley Pavilion. I tell you what, when I walked into Pauley Pavilion, I had chills seeing all the history there with John Wooden and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Walton and Russell Westbrook and just all the great players who have come through the UCLA basketball program. And Pauley Pavilion is also home to the UCLA gymnastics program, which also has had a ton of success over the years, and the UCLA volleyball programs. But I also went to a Los Angeles Kings game with my wife, and then I mentioned the Lakers. So I was there at a Lakers game with a media credential. And I don't think people realize how much there is in terms of sports along Route 66. And I was shocked that no one had ever connected sports to Route 66 before. You think about Route 66 and you think about, the classic cars or the old hotels, the old gas stations, the old restaurants, the ghost towns that were created once the interstate system bypassed Route 66. But as Scott Petrowski, who's the president of the California Route 66 Association, said that most people think of Route 66 about what used to be. Whereas my book focuses on what you can do now. It also mentions, the classic Route 66 stops like the Cadillac Ranch in Amarillo, Texas, or the Wagon Wheel Restaurant here where I am in Needles, California right now. And so the multiple Route 66 museums that are in Joliet or Pontiac or Litchfield in Illinois, and all the way down to the California Route 66 Museum in Victorville. All those things are in the book, but and it's in terms of sports, it's not just the major sports, the football, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer, also rugby, golf, rodeo. There's a huge rodeo scene from Cuba, Missouri, all the way down to Williams, Arizona. Tucumcari, New Mexico, and Amarillo, Texas have huge rodeo events every fall. And then, swimming. There are a lot of Olympic swimmers either went to college or high school in Route 66 towns. And then track and field with East St. Louis and Azusa, California, really being the big ones for track and field, where Jackie Joyner-Kersey and Dawn Nelson are from East St. Louis. Azusa Pacific, as of 2020, or as of the 2021 games, Azusa Pacific had produced a Division II university, had produced 14 Olympic athletes, including a couple of gold medalists. Azusa Pacific, though, probably best known for being the alma mater of the Nigerian nightmare, Christian Okoye, who was terrorizing defenses in the 1980s when he was a running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. Christian Okoye, Azusa Pacific. So you have all these schools and teams along Route 66, and it was really a joy to travel the route in the fall of 2019. We took 2 months to do it. And then the next 7 months after that was me writing the book, and I learned a lot. It made me want to go see more this go around while I'm doing this book tour, which just started on August 20th in West Hollywood, California.
That's awesome. And you're speaking like my dad's language, because he's always been like, oh, I just want to get an RV and just go with your mom and just explore the country. That's always been like his dream. And for me, you're speaking my language as well, because, man, I've been just preaching mobility for so long. I almost moved to LA in March, decided not to. I really want to establish kind of a base here in upstate New York, but then eventually just be able to travel wherever I want when the funds are there. So I just think it's amazing, the places you've gone, the things that you've seen. I mean, every day, we go to work, or, some people don't, but most people that work or go to school, it's like you do all of those things, and then it's like, well, what's left of life? You have to find things that are meaningful and things that have value. And I really, commend you for doing this as far as writing the book and experiencing those experiences, because that is what life is worth living, having those moments. It's not about, having your, $5 beer over at, some random pub. You may not even remember that. You probably won't. But what you will remember are the events and the different things that you've gone through, and just like, I mean, clearly you remember it because you were just naming them off, like crazy. So I do think that is awesome. Especially, you're mentioning UCLA, you're mentioning your interview with LeBron, just like really cool stuff. Plus, on top of that, since I will say a lot of my viewer base are Rams fans, you cover the Rams. I found that, really awesome as well. And just it sounds like you've just done so much, and that's really a cool thing, because there's always people that will be like, oh, I wish I could have done this or done this, and they put kind of like an expiration date on something. But in terms of traveling, I think you can travel like whenever, so to speak, as long as you make it happen. And it's just really cool. Plus the Route 66, I've seen different, like, I want to say diners, drive-ins, and dives, so to speak. They've talked about it a lot. But I've seen it, featured in a lot of, those TV shows, so to speak. And, it's definitely cool to kind of get your perspective on it as well. Because I'd love to be able to go to all the stadiums. I mean, that is the dream for me, going to all the baseball stadiums, going to all the NFL stadiums. I mean, that, to me, that would be so cool. And on top of that,
so when I was,
oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was working as an NFL writer, right? So one of the questions I got back in 2018 was, why baseball? Why aren't you going to all the football stadiums, right? And my answer was pretty simple. There are 18 weeks, I guess 20 if you count the preseason, right?
Yes.
There are 20 weeks in the NFL season. There are 32 teams and 30 stadiums, because the Jets and Giants and Rams and Chargers, right? Yeah. So it's really not feasible to do all of the NFL stadiums in a single season. Baseball was doable. And my wife and I are big baseball fans. Again, we're a split household there. I'm Brewers and she's Cardinals. But the first place Milwaukee Brewers, 8.5 game lead in the NL Central right now. But anyway, baseball was doable, and so that's why we. Okay, are you back?
Yeah, I think I lost you on that.
Yeah, but I want to show everybody why we've been able to do this. My wife is literally sitting right next to me.
Don't you dare!
And this is her workstation right here. So, she is a project manager for Wells Fargo, and her job is from day one 4 years ago. She's been fully remote. And that's awesome. That's what actually prompted us to start this travel, because in July of 2017, she came to the realization, like, I could work from anywhere. And so we decided to get an RV and do the baseball trip. And the baseball trip was that was supposed to be it for the RV. We're just going to do it for a year and then, get a house. But when we were done with the baseball trip, I was like, wow, we've been to 38 states. Let's just finish it. So now we're at 49 states. And when I told people when I was done writing a Home Run on Wheels, which was the name of the baseball book, when I was done writing Home Run on Wheels, which, by the way, proceeds from Home Run on Wheels go to benefit foster care organizations. That was our charity mission behind Home Run on Wheels, was to help foster care organizations. But anyway, people asked me what my second book was going to be. And when I say people, I mean mainly the person sitting to my left. And I realized that no one had connected sports to Route 66 before. And it was shocking because, as I said before, it starts in Chicago and ends in Los Angeles, where you have literally every professional sports league NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer. Literally every pro sports league in North America is represented in Chicago or in Los Angeles. So it was pretty stunning to me that in 2019, no one had ever connected the two, sports to Route 66. And I went through the whole thing before, that there are so many, there is so much sports along Route 66. And I'm assuming a lot of your viewers are in the Los Angeles area, being a Rams-based podcast. Well, there. All right, the Wi-Fi. I told you the Wi-Fi in this RV park's a little wonky, so apologies for that.
Yeah, guys, he's in RV.
But every Dodgers fan. Yeah. Every Dodgers fan should travel Route 66 because every level of Dodgers baseball is along Route 66. You've got single A in Rancho Cucamonga, California, double A in Tulsa, Oklahoma, triple A is in Oklahoma City, and then Dodger Stadium is literally right on Route 66 where the 110 and 101 come into downtown Los Angeles. And you can also watch the Dodgers in Chicago. You know, Wrigley Field is 4 miles north of the Route 66 start point at the Chicago Art Museum. You can see the Dodgers in St. Louis at Busch Stadium, which is literally right on Route 66. And then the Tulsa Drillers, the AA affiliate, are in the Texas League. And the Texas League includes the Springfield, Missouri Cardinals. I say Springfield, Missouri, because Springfield, Illinois is also on Route 66, the state capital of Illinois. But you can see the Tulsa Drillers in Springfield, Missouri, and in Amarillo, Texas, another AA affiliate of the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Amarillo Sod Poodles, one of the great names in minor league baseball. And for those who don't know, a sod poodle is a little known nickname, a little used nickname for a prairie dog, which are prevalent in North Texas.
That's funny. It's not the Montgomery Biscuits, though.
No. There are so many good minor league names. I mean, up in your neck of the woods, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies.
Oh my God!
In Connecticut, you've got the Hartford Yard Goats. I mean, there are so many great names. I think someone could do a book on just the goofy name, and maybe it's already been done. The goofy names and the origin of those goofy names.
Oh man! Well, and then the mascots, and then the mascots to go with it. So it's not just the name. Then you have a guy trotting out there with a biscuit with butter on it.
Well, hey, earlier this year, my wife and I were in Huntsville, Alabama, and they have a new AA team, AA affiliate of the Angels. And now Huntsville has a huge NASA missile plant. So the nickname of the town is Rocket City. Okay. Well, cool. Have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
I have. I've seen all the MCU stuff.
All right. All right.
Well, we're back.
I'm sorry, man.
No, you're fine. Everyone, for those of you who are now joining, Ron is coming to us from an RV. So there's going to be some spots where we lose him, but he hasn't been lost for good. You're still here.
Yeah. So Rocket Raccoon with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
You know the scene where Star-Lord is like, shut up, Raccoon. And stop calling me Raccoon. Fine, Trash Panda. It's so much worse, right? Yeah. Well, when it was announced that Huntsville was going to be getting a minor league baseball team, they did a fan vote. And the minor league baseball team, the AA affiliate of the Anaheim Angels, is the Rocket City Trash Pandas.
So, oh, my God. That was what the fans voted for?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
And earlier this year, so the Trash Pandas were supposed to debut in 2020, but that season obviously got washed out. So they had their inaugural season this year, and my wife and I were at their second ever home game.
Oh, wow.
We could not get tickets for the first ever home game because it was sold out. But we did go to game number 2, and they do have a big giant raccoon as their mascot.
That's amazing. How close is it to the MCU raccoon?
Not really. He's wearing a baseball uniform. Probably, I'm sure copyright issues went into that.
I was thinking, because I absolutely. I mean, anytime you're dealing with any sort of thing like with Marvel,
I do think they should have a Guardians of the Galaxy theme night, and it would be awesome if Bradley Cooper, the voice of Rocket, would show up to that. So
that would be great. They should do that.
By the way, Trash Pandas on Twitter, great follow.
I'll be sure to do that. I didn't even know they existed. I mean, it's funny. Like I've looked. I have a Discord channel with like a bunch of people that follow this channel, and there's like all of these. We were doing it the other day. We were just like sharing all of like the worst mascots. What's the one with the sun? Like the dude, the mascot is like there's like a sun that like is trying to smile but can't, and it is so painfully bad. There's also one. I don't know if you've ever seen the horror movie. What is it? Happy Death Day. Not really horror. I mean, it's kind of Well, there's like a baby face, and there's like that's one of the mascots, like the baby face from like that movie.
Oh wow!
It's just there's some bizarre ones out there. I don't even know how they get like permission to use some.
New Orleans used to have the I think they're called the baby cakes.
Oh God!
And that is like a dessert you can get in New Orleans.
Okay. All right. If it has to do with dessert, I'll give it a pass.
Right.
But the biscuits, come on now.
But along Route 66, so there's a lot of minor league baseball. I think like if you were to just do the minor league baseball teams along Route 66, you'd start with the Joliet Slammers. Joliet, Illinois is a town kind of famous for the old prison that used to be there. I mean, it's still there. You can tour it, but it's not an active prison anymore. But it was used in the filming of the movie Let's Go to Prison, which is a really funny movie with Will Arnett and Chi McBride. But it was used in the Blues Brothers movie, the television show Prison Break. They filmed scenes at the Joliet prison.
Wow.
So the team there is called the Joliet Slammers. And speaking of mascots, they have a crow wearing gray and black striped pajamas, right? Like a prison uniform.
Yeah.
So it's a jailbird, right? So that's
that's clever.
But Slammers also works with baseball, right?
Yeah.
And then you go a little further down in Normal, Illinois. They used to have it in the same league. It's the Frontier League in the Midwest. It's an independent minor league. Normal, Illinois used to be part of the Frontier League, but now they're a college woodbat summer team, and they're called the Corn Belters. And one unique thing about the stadium in there, Normal, which is called the Corn Crib, is they sell sweet corn that you can eat, at the concessions. Well, that sweet corn that they sell at the stadium is grown right there at the stadium because the batter's eye in center field is a miniature cornfield.
Oh, that's great.
It's fantastic. And then you get a little further down by St. Louis, you've got the Gateway Grizzlies in Sauget, Illinois. And then I mentioned the Springfield Cardinals in Missouri, the Tulsa Drillers, the Oklahoma City Dodgers, the Amarillo Sod Poodles. There's a minor league team. I'm not sure if they went under last year, but in Santa Fe, New Mexico, you've got the Fuego, which means fire, right, in Spanish.
Yeah.
So Santa Fe Fuego. In Albuquerque, you've got the Isotopes, the AAA affiliate of the Colorado Rockies, and they take their name from The Simpsons.
Really?
Do you remember the episode where Homer at the bat, where Homer was playing baseball and he ended up hitting a game-winning home run? And anyway,
Vaguely remember that.
there are multiple. There was actually another episode of The Simpsons where Springfield, the fictional Springfield, right, had a minor league baseball team, and they left and went to Albuquerque. So when Albuquerque got a minor league baseball team, and again, it was a fan vote, and Isotopes, because there used to be a nuclear plant in Albuquerque, and of course the nuclear plant is kind of central to the Simpsons storyline with Homer works there, right? So yeah. Isotopes won. There are multiple Simpsons statues at Isotopes Park. It's a really cool stadium. I was there in November of 2019, so I wasn't able to go to a game there, but I did get a tour of the stadium. And the statue of Homer Simpson is, of course, right behind home plate. But then you get down to Victorville, California, and they have a minor league stadium called Adelanto Stadium, which is right outside of Victorville. And then I mentioned the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, and so there's a lot of minor league baseball. There's a lot of hockey on Route 66. You got Chicago with the Blackhawks, St. Louis with the Blues, the Los Angeles with the Kings, and then little off of Route 66 in California, you've got the Ontario Reign, and Tulsa has an ECHL team, the Oilers, and then there's a North American Hockey League team in Amarillo. When we were there in 2019, it was the Amarillo Bulls. They are now called the Amarillo Wranglers. You know how those minor league teams, they're always changing affiliations and names and stuff, and so that's what happened in Amarillo this year. But the book still says the Amarillo because of 2020, and they were still the Bulls.
No, it's funny. You know, I think the best comparison I can make to say like a minor league baseball, like all the minor league baseball teams, they're like those IPA beer cans because it's like an art for them to be different and like, you know, and it's like the pros, everything, you know, like your Budweiser, you don't change that. You don't change like Blue Moon. You're not going to change your logo. Maybe you will after a while, but like, just like, you know, pro teams, sometimes they'll change their logos, but they don't do it all the time, and they don't go crazy with, like, their can art, whereas that is a thing that IPs are known for. They hire very, very talented artists that will design that can art, just like, you know, with these minor league teams. They're not just, like, calling themselves the Bulls. They're going to have all sorts of crazy names, and they're going to get crazy with their mascots and the reason behind it, like you said, with the Slammers, like that's a great, so much connects where that's actually like a great team name, like, you know, especially with the mascot. So it is funny in a sense because I was thinking about that. I'm like, oh my God, they're basically like the IPA cans of sports. It's just, I don't know, I find it funny. And I don't even like really drink IPAs, but I do know that like the can art is just, I mean, that's a big thing with that, you know. So I figured I'd mention that.
Man, we've been traveling this great country. We've been to every state except for Alaska. We haven't made it up there yet, but we will. And we've probably gone to a couple hundred breweries over the last 3.5 years. And seeing some of the cans, you just want to keep some of them because they're so unique. But
exactly.
And you know what? If we were in a house, I probably would have been keeping a lot of those cans, but we're in an RV, so space is at a premium. So no, they just go in my belly.
I hear you there. Well, I think I have one can kept, and I don't know if you know the band Dream Theater, but they had their own beer specifically made for them on a tour.
That I didn't know.
So I saw them in upstate New York, and they had like this limited edition can, and I have no idea where it is, but we did keep it, at least for what I remember. So that's the only time I've ever kept the beer can after it's already been consumed. But no, that is funny, and I can't imagine, I mean, how many different breweries you've gone to, and I will ask because I never see it around here. They are so hard to get, and people, it's almost like controversial beer take, but I'm a big sour ale fan. Were there any sour ales on that trip?
I'm sure there were. My wife loves saisons, but not a sour saison, and I am definitely not a sour beer drinker. at all. So I am the wrong person to ask that question.
I figured I would. I mean, trying to get a sour ale just at like a local grocery store is like damn near impossible. There's this one place, it's Dog House, and it's like right by my house. That's like the only place I can get a sour ale. So it's all IPA central over here.
There is a doghouse, by the way, right on Route 66 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but it's a hot dog place. And if you've ever seen Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, you have seen images of the doghouse because it has been shown in those shows. There is a very neat scene. And by the way, the doghouse in Albuquerque is right on Route 66.
Oh, perfect.
And my wife and I went there in 2019 and had some dogs. But there is a scene in Better Call Saul where Jimmy is trying to sell cell phones, not like underground cell phones, right? And burner phones, right? He's trying to sell cell phones, and he gets mugged in the parking lot of the Doghouse restaurant in Albuquerque. And I do think I mentioned that in a Sports Fan's Guide to Route 66. I said before, it's not just sports. I talk about the places to go on Route 66. There are a couple of breweries in Albuquerque that I mentioned. Bosque, which means forest in Spanish, and then Boxing Bear. Boxing Bear is really cool. I know they have some sours at Boxing Bear in Albuquerque. I do remember seeing that on the menu there. So if you're in Albuquerque, Boxing Bear Brewery.
Write that down right now.
And then I'm actually doing 2 book signings of a Sports Fan's Guide to Route 66 in Tulsa and Amarillo. In Amarillo, I'm going to be at Six Car Pub and Brewery on October 2nd, I believe. And then October 13th is Marshall Brewing Company in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That's great. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to check out Route 66. Like, I mean, I think because I drove to Lawrence, Kansas with my uncle, my dad, and my cousins and my brother. And I mean, we went through like Chicago, so to speak. Like we went to Wrigley Field, but I don't remember the trip as much. You know what I mean? I remember when we got to our destination, but I think I just was so exhausted during that trip just driving, which is weird because we just drove from Florida to New York and I was up the entire time. But like I just, when I was younger, I was thinking around 2012, I want to say, because it was right after, I'm a big Kansas Jayhawk fan, and it was right after Kansas had lost to Kentucky in the championship game. And right after that, we drove to Kansas because we have family in Lawrence. And yeah, I mean, I was just totally zonked the whole trip. I remember my dad saying, you missed this landmark, you missed this one. I pointed this out, you were still passed out. Like, now I feel like I can enjoy it way more.
See, your mistake then was not remembering that the journey is the destination.
Yes, exactly. No, I agree with you. And it's why, I do like driving. I mean, I like flying as well because you can, see, below you a bunch of stuff. But it's also, I think it's good to do it from both perspectives because you can see it up close and personal. And then you can see the bird's eye view. Sometimes, they both go hand in hand. They complement each other. I will say seeing SoFi in person and then seeing it like overhead, that was really cool because I had only seen it on TV and they weren't finished, but they were getting really close to finished. And just that's just one of the things that stands out to me, as well as flying over. We were going to Vegas, but when we were going to Vegas, all of a sudden there's nothing. And then it's just like a bright beam of light. And then that is the strip. And it's just lively. And I don't know. I love traveling. I love, food. I love all of that because I just love, I realize that not every day, like my lifestyle and what's around me isn't the same as everyone else. And I always love, finding out what people, live around and the different cultures and, different things. And you can even hear, like, I mean, of course you can hear when you're traveling, the different accents that people have, different places. It's honestly so cool. I lived a little, like, not too long, but I lived early on when I was younger, in Marblehead, Massachusetts. So I was around a lot of like Boston fans and, that like accent, like the stereotypical Boston accent. But then I came to New York, and it's funny because people are like, nobody in upstate New York sounds like New Yorkers. I'm like, wait, hold on a sec. Nobody in upstate New York sounds like the typical New Yorker that you've seen in a Martin Scorsese movie, but not everyone sounds like a New York City, resident here. That's not how it is. But it's funny because like when I tell people I live in New York, like, oh yeah, I love New York City. I've been there. I'm like, no. I'm nowhere near New York City. I'm about 3-4 hours away. Like it's funny though. Like, you do get
people don't realize my wife and I went to Cooperstown earlier this year,
which is amazing.
We were there on Memorial Day. We did that big baseball trip that I talked about before, but we didn't go. We had never been to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Really?
And then our old neighbor from Charlotte lives in Rochester, so we went over from Cooperstown to visit her and stayed with her for a few days. I don't think people realize how beautiful Western and upstate New York is.
I know
it's gorgeous. Trees, lakes, mountains, not like the Rocky Mountains, but upstate New York and Western New York is really pretty.
And people have no idea how many movies that they enjoy were filmed here. Like I feel like there's
I thought everything was just filmed in Georgia now.
It's like everything that's filmed in Atlanta, it seems like, but no, it's weird. I don't know if you remember the movie Salt, about the Russian spy. That was filmed in downtown Albany. Like no one knew that. It was
Angelina Jolie, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's one in particular that I always bring up. Another one that you haven't seen yet, and I haven't seen yet because it isn't out yet. I was almost in the movie because I was in Saratoga so much. Is Paint, which is the movie that Owen Wilson is portraying Bob Ross in. So that's going to be cool.
Owen Wilson?
Owen Wilson.
Wow.
I know. Wow. I need to hear it, man. I didn't hear it once during Loki, so I need to. There needs to be some sort of payoff here. No, it's cool though. And the thing that like for instance, I don't know if you follow like Barstool at all, but like Dave Portnoy is always in our area because Saratoga has the Travers here, and you get all sorts of big names here because we have our Saratoga Performing Arts Center, albeit they have recently forgot how to book bands and good bands at that. But before we used to get Rush here. We've had all sorts of, great acts here. And, Dave Matthews is somebody, very famous. I'm not really into his music, but he's huge around here. And he will ride his bike all throughout Saratoga when he plays his shows in Saratoga.
Motorcycle or bicycle?
Just bicycle. Like he just rides around, and if anybody comes up to him, he's like the nicest guy. And
that's cool.
We'll just sign autographs and say hi. Yeah. And it's just like that's upstate New York to me. Is like it. I act so shocked when like a movie is being filmed here, but I just recently was like asked to be a part of like a background actor in a movie that'll be here. I can't say who's in it, but it's like I don't know why I act shocked anymore with all of these different things, because it's like so many, even in like movies I'm noticing, even if they're not filming in upstate New York, like the new Avengers base in the MCU is supposedly in upstate New York, and it looks like it's not far from my house the way it's set up. So it's pretty crazy, but it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Just like
you're low key a superhero, aren't you?
I can't say. I try. I mean, but no, I mean, I think it's definitely really cool how everything like kind of ties in with that. Now, like you said, though, there's a lot of truth that a ton of stuff is being filmed in Georgia. That I'm not denying, and I feel like everything, and this is actually something I learned because I went to the Warner Brothers studio and had that tour, which honestly changed my perspective forever on film and entertainment.
Is that in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where. I don't remember exactly where, but I went to that and Sony Pictures Studio as well. I had both. Because
Route 66, like Route 66, literally goes through Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Santa Monica Boulevard from Los Angeles goes into Hollywood and then Beverly Hills and then Santa Monica before it gets to the Santa Monica Pier, where Route 66. There's a sign there at the end of the trail,
Yeah.
and that sign, a picture of the sign that I took, is on the back page of the book.
Oh yeah, I love that area. I love Santa Monica. Now I understand there are some weirdos that hang out in Santa Monica, so certain
Right.
times you don't want to be in that area,
So,
but you know.
One thing I wanted to include in a sports fan's guide to Route 66 is like the famous people who might have come from a high school, or a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
And like Pro Football Hall of Famer Max Speedy, who played for the Packers in the 20s and 30s, but wasn't inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame until 2020. He's from Odell, Illinois, tiny little town. Okay, but with Santa Monica, former NFL player Marcellus Wiley, now with ESPN, right? Marcellus Wiley grew up in Santa Monica. He went to St. Monica Catholic School, but Santa Monica High School, the public high school. Do you remember the Brat Pack in the 80s? Charlie Sheen, Robert Downey Jr., Rob Lowe, right? Yeah, they all went to Santa Monica High School. Like, they grew up together in Santa Monica, and all went to Santa Monica High School.
Wow, I didn't know that.
The television show Glee, the school that they used to film Glee was Bernstein High School in Hollywood. So the Bernstein High School is a 10-15 minute walk from the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. All right. And so so that's the kind of stuff that's in the book that's not necessarily sports related, but it's still, I wanted to give you a history of the schools along Route 66. You can kind of, it's all about context, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Beverly Hills High School, you've seen It's a Wonderful Life at Christmas time, right?
I've seen it, yeah.
Jimmy Stewart, remember early in the movie when he first meets the woman who becomes his wife, and they meet at a high school dance, and then some guy is jealous that Jimmy Stewart is dancing with the girl that he likes, so he opens the floor to the gymnasium, and there's a swimming pool underneath, and everybody falls into the pool, right?
Yeah.
Well, that swim gym, as they call it, is real, and it's at Beverly Hills High School.
Wow. I didn't know that either. That's crazy. I mean, I have I have some sort of connection to that area because not that specific.
I was wondering
area.
why you're a Rams fan.
Yeah, so here it comes. All right. So my dad grew up in Irvine, California, and his next door neighbor was Jim Youngblood. So
sure, okay.
So that kind of sparked that whole thing. And then I get asked, well, why aren't you a Dodgers fan? And it's like, well, I had to have some, New York in me, right? I don't like Syracuse. I'm not a Jets fan, a Bills fan, a Giants fan, and I could care less about the Knicks. So I had to, like a team. But to be fair, my dad was born in Poughkeepsie, and so they didn't move out to California until a little bit later on. And then my grandfather did the absolute worst thing that you could do for a teen, is move him away from SoCal back to upstate New York. So after he had been living there, I think it was his freshman year of high school, he moved back to upstate New York. And that's, he still liked the Rams, of course, and the Yankees, and his favorite player was Reggie Jackson, so he saw Reggie play for the Angels, and when the A's, of course, played, then he saw that as well. But yeah, I mean that's that. I mean, it's crazy when you really think about it. But he was around, like, Adam Keefe was a guy, like, I believe he played basketball with, and it's funny because he has a story. One of his friends said he called him up one day and he's like, "Hey, do you remember how uncoordinated Adam Keefe was?" And he's like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "Well, he got coordinated." He was like NBA player, like all of that. And then just going to, I don't know if he went to the same high school as Will Ferrell, but I think I think Will Ferrell went to university, and he went to the high school opposite. And so Will Ferrell was in the picture. And then the guys from the band No Doubt with Gwen Stefani, I think they went to my dad's school, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
So yeah, there were some connections there. And I think Zach De La Rocha as well from Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
I think he also went to either Will Ferrell's school or my father's school. I don't remember. I get them kind of confused because my dad told me so much, but yeah, Testify. There we go. But it's just it's crazy, I mean, I've only been around. I mean, albeit they weren't in my graduating class, and they're both really successful so far, and you probably know them. Kevin Herter went to my high school, and he's one of the starting players for the Hawks, played in the playoffs, and then Ian Anderson, who he's one of the top pitchers for the Braves. He might honestly be the future of that rotation. So both those guys came from my school. And I mean,
I got really
all I
nobody
can really say, but
I got really nobody from my high school back in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So,
nobody?
Not really. Nope.
Well,
Bronson Koenig, who played for the Wisconsin Badgers a few years ago, was part of those NCAA tournament teams that had some nice runs. He was a point guard. Bronson Koenig went to the same high school that I did. But yeah,
give it time. You'll have somebody just randomly emerge, and then you'll root for them. It'll happen. I mean, hey, I know we had Greg Kubek from Shen. The thing with Shen, I'll say this. I'm not trying to hate on my school, but there's a guy by the name of Chris Wise that was there, that played with the Cult, and he tried out for Metallica, and honestly, he probably should have made it, but he didn't have the look that they were looking for. Chris Wise went to my he wasn't when I was there, obviously. He's a lot older than me. But Chris Wise went to my high school, and they didn't really... I mean, he was playing like bass with his tongue, so to speak. I mean, he was doing all sorts of crazy Jimi Hendrix type of stuff at a talent show. There's video that you can find somewhere on YouTube, and he's never, ever mentioned. So I feel like, obviously, that high school is very sports-oriented because, I mean, Chris Wise is one of the best, one of the best musicians in rock, I think has, in a long time. I mean, so that's one thing I'll say. Not everybody necessarily has to be an athlete, so to speak, to be a notable person. And hopefully they'll, I'll be able to be added to that list, depending on how well I do. So,
yeah, same. One high school that stood out in particular to me, as far as like just multiple people across, multiple famous people across, different platforms was Northwest Classen High School in Oklahoma City. So there is a statue of country music legend Vince Gill outside of the high school. But also graduating from the same school were Skip Bayless, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and the 90s R&B group Color Me Bad.
Wow.
And then in Pasadena, at Pasadena High School, that's where Van Halen formed.
That's
because
crazy.
They met while they were going to Pasadena High School. And then bringing it back to sports, outside of St. Louis in Wildwood, Missouri, which is like Missouri Highway 100 that goes west from St. Louis into Maplewood and then eventually out to Wildwood. But there's a high school out there called Lafayette. And you're a Yankees fan. Luke Voigt. Okay?
Luke Voigt's great. I love him.
Luke Voigt went to that high school. But do you know who else went to that high school?
Who else?
2011 World Series MVP David Freese.
Oh,
and
wow.
2006 National League MVP Ryan Howard. So Ryan Howard, David Freese, and Luke Voigt, 3 all-star caliber baseball players, all went to the same St. Louis high school.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so
to be fair,
covering sports in St. Louis, that was something that I had already known. I was aware of Lafayette's baseball tradition, but I was unaware that Van Halen formed while the guys were all attending Pasadena High School. I had no idea about Northwest Classen High School in Oklahoma City, and that high school is a kind of kitty corner from Taft Stadium, which is where the OKC Energy play, which is a minor league soccer team. Taft Stadium is like a stadium that's more than 100 years old. It's where the Northwest Classen High School football, soccer, and track and field teams compete, but also the OKC Energy. And, it's stuff like that. There are so many old stadiums like that on Route 66 and a few of them are on the National Register of Historic Places. And the one that stands out is, I mentioned before, the Rose Bowl. And that's on the National Register of Historic Places. The LA Coliseum is on the National Register. And I do include, because like the LA Coliseum is a little further south of where Route 66 runs. But in the book, so I do include some recommended side trips for those who want to see, like, some sports venues, and in the LA area, I do talk about SoFi Stadium and the stadium down in Carson where the LA Galaxy play. Used to be, was home to the Chargers for a couple seasons. Yeah. The Coliseum, and then of course the teams in Anaheim with the Ducks and the Angels. But then, like outside of Oklahoma City, going 30 miles south to Norman, and to go see a Sooners basketball, football game, or a gymnastics meet. Shannon Miller, an Olympic gymnast, who's from Edmond, Oklahoma, and I believe she went to the University of Oklahoma. There is a Las Vegas in New Mexico that's has a really cute little downtown square, and that's not far off of Route 66. And then West Texas A&M in Canyon, Texas, a little south of Amarillo, is a D2 program that has produced a few NFL players, including 2 for the Rams. Remember Keith Null? He started one game against the Tennessee Titans.
How will I ever forget Keith Null?
And threw 5 interceptions. I know, right? But then there was also another guy, Ethan Westbrooks, who went to West Texas A&M.
That's my guy.
They drafted them in back-to-back years, and at the time, Billy Devaney made a joke that they had that the Rams were the NFL pipeline for West Texas A&M. So
I love Ethan Westbrooks.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I knew him a little bit when I was covering the Rams in St. Louis, and so no, it's stuff like that. I really do think A Sports Fan's Guide to Route 66 has something for everybody, no matter your sports taste, even if you're just a casual sports fan. And I really geared the book toward international travelers. So, like, why do Americans care so much about college and high school sports? When people in other countries only watch amateur athletics every 4 years for the Olympics, right? And but I really wanted to make it as comprehensive as possible. So that's why I have horse racing and auto racing and rugby and soccer and golf courses along the way, because I wanted to appeal to as many people as possible, and those people who are just the casual sports fans who might want to check out a game here or there, and while seeing all the Route 66 sites. And that's why all the Route 66 sites are mentioned in A Sports Fan's Guide to Route 66. But and I did want to appeal to the Olympic, or excuse me, to the international traveler. And so, like, every Olympic athlete I stumbled upon, who was a medal winner and is from a Route 66 town, they are mentioned in the book.
That's cool. That is really cool. All of that. I just think, and we didn't really talk about, like, I used to be, actually. I was really into NASCAR. So when you said, like, Chicagoland Speedway, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Well, Fontana too in California is along Route 66.
That's where my guy's from. My favorite driver.
Who's
Jimmy
that?
Johnson.
Okay, I did not realize he was from Fontana.
Yeah, he's from Fontana. Man, I gotta tell you, I think Jimmy is the greatest driver of all time. I am biased because he is my favorite, but it's also not because
my father-in-law would disagree with you, because he's got a little shrine in his house to Jeff Gordon.
Oh, well, okay. That's the thing, is, like, I think Jeff Gordon deserves credit because he's the one that kind of brought him onto the scene, so to speak. So, I mean, Jeff Gordon was my favorite.
And then there are those old school guys who would fight you over Richard Petty.
And then what I would say to that is Richard Petty had a better car than everyone else, and the competition was nothing. I mean, come on now. Like, and that is not to take away how great he was. It's like, the Will Chamberlain argument. Like Will Chamberlain can't be the greatest of all time, but at the same time, I think you can make an argument because he was so dominant. We can't just take that away from him. Plus, he was an incredible athlete. Richard Petty was an incredible driver. It's just, if we're going to make this and sometimes these comparisons aren't fair. But when you're comparing Jimmy Johnson to Richard Petty, to me, Jimmy, this is the argument I would make for him. He raced in the hardest era of racing because the guys that he had to go up against, I mean, you talk about going up against Matt Kenseth in his prime, Kevin Harvick, who's still going strong, guys like that, Kyle Busch. He went up against Jeff Gordon, all sorts of those guys. But the thing that is so impressive to me about Jimmy Johnson is that he continued winning, and they continued to change the rules. They continued to add all of these different, boundaries and blockades. And, we're not going to get into how many times they changed the name of the freaking cup. But, regardless of that, just the point system, the playoffs, no one ever went through that.
I think NASCAR has a ridiculous playoff system.
It's so stupid. Everyone else races during the playoffs, but it doesn't count. Yeah. It's stupid. Yeah. It's stupid.
Imagine the NBA or the NFL
exactly
having a playoff where the winless Browns are playing the 15-1 Patriots in what's called a playoff game, and if the Patriots win, they get points to advance, but the game really doesn't matter. It's so ridiculous. And how are non-playoff participants able to participate in NASCAR's playoffs? It's so dumb to me. But I, as far as NASCAR grades, so you can't forget about the Dales, senior, senior and junior, and then I'll even throw in Jarrett.
I was gonna say Jarrett. I think Jarrett's underrated. I don't think he gets enough credit. And I mean, I think Dale Earnhardt Sr. is absolutely in the conversation. I'd say he's ahead of Richard Petty, to be honest with you, and I think Jeff Gordon might be. But if we're going by titles, they all are tied. Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, and Jimmy Johnson. So by virtue, I would say.
By the way, at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, to bring it back to Route 66, at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame in Springfield, Missouri, there is a car used by Rusty Wallace inside the
I liked Rusty Wallace.
The Missouri Sports Hall of Fame because Rusty Wallace was a Missouri guy. In fact, there's a track that, oh my God, dude, if you're an auto racing fan, there's a track right on Route 66 in Lebanon, Missouri. It's called the I-44 Speedway, even though it's a mile or two off of I-44, and it's right on Route 66, okay? That was where guys like Rusty Wallace and I think Brad Kwiatkowski and Kent and some of these other guys. It's like a track where they really cut their teeth.
Yeah.
And so if you like auto racing, I-44 Speedway in Lebanon, Missouri is a really cool. It's kind of down on a hill from the road, so you're looking over the top of it from the road. And
cool.
Unfortunately, when I went by there, the gates were closed. I wasn't able to get in there. And then there's another track. It's a dirt track in Kellyville, Oklahoma. That gets not really rowdy, but gets a pretty good turnout on a fall weekend. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a bummer because when Jimmy retired, so to speak, I've still been following it because I'm a huge Hendrick Motorsports fan. I love the guys there. I love Chase Elliott. I love Alex Bowman, who's taken over the 48, which is, I have not gotten used to that. But, I love those guys. William Byron, such a cool story. I mean, the dude was still in college. He was still at Lehigh and is still driving and everything. And then they added Kyle Larson. So, I mean, it's a really good squad. It's been so hard. And like you mentioned, I think a big reason is because of the playoff system. I think it is ridiculous. Imagine, I don't know if you watch NFL Red Zone at all, but imagine.
Oh, I love Red Zone.
Red Zone's great because I have multiple games on and then Red Zone. Which one?
I said I love Red Zone, whether or not the host is Andrew Siciliano or Scott Hansen.
Yeah, I like them both. I ran into Andrew Siciliano when I was covering the Reese's Senior Bowl. He's a lot shorter in person. I hope he doesn't.
Oh, Andrew Siciliano and Ian Rappaport are both super nice guys. They're awesome people, but they are also very tiny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm short too. I'm 5'8", but I also look.
So am I. I'm 5'8". Yeah.
But no, think about it like this. You hear Scott Hansen's voice, and this guy is trying to get you amped up for like this day of football, and only 14 teams. Only 14 teams. Their games actually matter. Then everyone else's, they don't. And it would just be so odd. And that is, like you said, that's NASCAR. I think the more annoying thing about NASCAR to me is that you are desperately trying to grow the sport. You've become more inclusive, all of that. But keep this in mind. NASCAR continues to alienate the casual viewer because by constantly throwing in these 1 minute, 2 minute penalties, the diehards don't even know what the hell's going on. And then all of a sudden you're trying to get more, these casual fans to view this. And it's like, how can you do that? Because, it's like the pit box, for instance, he went 41 miles an hour down this. He has to wait a whole 2 laps. It's like, so now the guy's completely out of the race. And like a casual fan that's just siding with their driver, that's enough to make me want to turn off the TV. That's the best way I can put that.
You're right. So I pulled the book up, by the way, because there's a not just not just with NASCAR at Chicagoland Speedway, but it used to host IndyCar races too, and it's got a big drag strip there for the NHRA. But this is what I was looking for. The three of the closest finishes in IndyCar history took place at Chicagoland.
Really?
Including the closest finish ever in 2002 when Sam Hornish Jr. edged Al Unser Jr. by 0.0024 second. Okay.
That's crazy.
So what is that? 24,000th of a second? And the first ever IndyCar driver to win at Chicagoland was Jacques Lazier. So but the last IndyCar race took place in 2011 when Dario Franchitti won. That's just I had my wife grab the book from behind me, and that was one thing I was trying to remember with not just NASCAR but IndyCar, and I think IndyCar competes down in St. Louis as well at Gateway Speedway. Gateway also has a drag strip for those guys who want to see a car go from 0 to 200 in a second.
I think it'd be cool to see that at least once,
Right.
So I probably do have to see that at some point. I've actually never been to a NASCAR race. I've always seen it on TV.
I used to work in Martinsville, Virginia, so I've been to one race, and it was in April 2002. And Bobby Labonte won the race. Dale Jarrett, actually, I got to meet him. He was part of the media day, the week before the race, so that was cool.
That's cool.
But what did I say?
You said Labonte. He ain't that fancy. It's Labonte.
My wife's making fun of me. I said Bobby Labonte instead of Bobby Labonte.
I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I know who that is, and I remember that. But man, that's funny. It's just funny because I used to watch all these drivers all the time, and then slowly but surely they just started to drop off like flies. I mean, Matt Kenseth is now a part-time driver. It just feels so weird. I remember the number 17 just
Tony Stewart's retired.
Yeah, I missed him in his fighting. I swear that guy was in a fight every single race. It seemed like afterwards he just started throwing fisticuffs.
He should have been a hockey player.
He should have been a hockey player. No, it's funny because I was gonna go to a race. I think it was this year. My dad has always wanted to go to Bristol. That's been like he wanted to always go to Bristol. He thought that was like the best track, so to speak. And I wanted to go to Daytona because I have family there. So the fact that we didn't go to Daytona when we have family there is just beyond. I don't even know. But we're not far away from Watkins Glen. While that is more of a road race, I still wanted to go. And then we were planning on going to the Poconos, and then the season basically no fans in the stands, so to speak. So it just like so much went into making sure we couldn't go to a race. I was just like, all right, maybe we're just not meant to go. Maybe it's some like Final Destination type crap where like a tire's going to come off the road and like hit us in the face or something. I was like, I don't know. We're cursed at this point.
Well, that escalated quickly.
But I mean, hey, you know, it's cool though that you got to go to one. I always, like I said, I always wanted to.
And I'm not a big NASCAR fan at all. But I do think it would be nice to really, it'd be kind of cool to experience something at one of the super speedways like Daytona or Talladega.
Yeah, Talladega is another one. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I like.
Or like on Route 66 with Chicagoland, Gateway and Fontana. Auto Club Speedway down there in Fontana.
The thing that I like about NASCAR is that those. And it's unlike any other place, unlike any other sport, is like when you're dealing with those tracks, they're all meant to be different. So like there are drivers that can't drive at all on road races. Like they just can't do it. And you could see, and you're like, man, he's one of the best. Why is he in last place at Watkins Glen? It's like some guys just absolutely cannot do road races. And then there's some guys that can't do super speedways, and you'll see them near the bottom, but they're amazing on road races. And you're like, I mean, it's a completely different driving style. Plus, you have to, factor in, the traction compounds are different at each track and things like that. So it's always been cool. Plus, they call the Pocono Raceway the Tricky Triangle. So, there's all sorts of different crazy shapes and stuff.
That's something I never really thought about. It's kind of like baseball stadiums in that regard. At a football field or a basketball court or an ice rink, they're all the same size, right?
Exactly.
But the dimensions at baseball stadiums vary from stadium to stadium. And thinking of auto tracks in that way, I never really thought of.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at an overhead view of Watkins Glen, it doesn't make any sense. It's just a weird. It's like a deformed rectangle. It's really odd. And then they added another one, part of like a regular track. They call it the Roval. It's a pretty new concept. It was like an obstacle course type of deal. It's really odd. It was like a road race on an actual track, and it was just really. So they've done stuff like that, and like you said, with baseball, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't even think about that at first, and that makes a lot of sense. Like I watch a lot of Yankees baseball, obviously, and they play the Red Sox a lot because they're in the same division. When they play at Fenway, you almost have to play a completely different style of outfield because if you do not know how to play that ball off the green monster when it hits, you're done. Like that thing, right. People can turn that into, an inside the park home run. And of course, the pesky pole, the right field pole. I mean, people like to just, kind of slap that. I mean, just a simple, base hit at Fenway could be a home run. Like that's depending on where you hit it.
Right field at Yankee Stadium has kind of a short porch too. But
yeah, exactly.
My wife and I, when we were on the baseball trip, when we were at Dodger Stadium, I'm from Wisconsin. I said before I'm a Brewers fan. Yeah. And the Brewers are playing the Dodgers on August 1st, 2018, and Lorenzo Cain led off the game with either a double or a triple. But anyway, he ended up scoring. So Brewers had the early lead, but it goes into the ninth inning and it's tied. And Lorenzo Cain led off the ninth inning, needing a home run to complete the cycle. And so I, as the only Brewers fan in the section down the right field line, I'm like, all right, Lorenzo Cain, home run here. Brewers are going to win it. And he flies out to the warning track. So I'm just like, oh. So the game goes to extra innings, and I'm just like, all right, extra innings, Brewers. Well, Yasmani Grandal, who was with the Dodgers at the time, hit a walk-off homer in the bottom of the 10th inning, and the Dodgers beat the Brewers. And then Grandal joined the Brewers the next year. Now he's with the White Sox. But No, that was a lot of fun. The one thing I will say about Dodger Stadium is that it's a really cool stadium, and they've got different spots marked in the outfield or in the outfield concourse where like a long home run hit. You know, Mark McGwire 500-foot homer or whatever. Mark McGwire, by the way, went to Dane High School. So did Dan McGwire, former NFL quarterback. Kind of a journeyman guy. But Dan and Mark McGwire, brothers, went to high school on Route 66 in Laverne, California. Mark went to Damien, and Dan went to the public school. But anyway, the concourse though at Dodger Stadium is marked like where these long home runs landed.
That's cool.
Funny Mark McGwire story that's in the book when I talk about Damien High School in Laverne, California, is that when he was a sophomore there, he wanted to quit baseball and take up golf. Okay. Well, the athletics director there at Damien High School talked him out of it. And I'm looking this up to see the athletics director's name. But his name was Tom Carroll. It's on page 302 right here, okay? So anyway, Tom Carroll was the athletics director at the time, talked Mark McGwire out of giving up baseball because Mark wanted to give up baseball to pursue golf. Wow. And so
that would have changed everything.
I know, right? The 1998 baseball season, would not have been as exciting as it was. But the baseball stadium at Damien High School is named Tom Carroll Stadium. So it's named after the athletics director who convinced Mark McGwire to stick with baseball.
I like that. That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've been following the What If series on Disney Plus, but with the What If Marvel,
yeah, exactly.
Like, what if Mark McGwire went to golf?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oh man.
So I mentioned that stadium's named after Tom Carroll. There are actually 2 high school football stadiums along Route 66 named after Pro Football Hall of Famers. All right. Granite City High School in Granite City, Illinois, has Kevin Green Stadium because Kevin Green graduated from high school in Granite City. And then Rialto Eisenhower High School has a football stadium named Ronnie Lott Stadium. And
cool.
So those are the 2 stadiums where you can see a high school football game with the Pro Football Hall of Famer's name on the side of the press box.
Yeah, I don't know if they were going to do it or not, but I talked to Merlin Olsen's brother on one of my shows, Phil, and I think they were going to honor Merlin in Utah. I forget exactly what city it was, but I don't know if they were going to change the name of I don't remember if they were going to change the name of the high school or stadium to his name, but I know they were recently honoring him, and there was like a huge thing. That was about, what I want to say, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But that kind of just reminded me of that. Because, I mean, Merlin Olsen's a Hall of Famer and,
right.
One of the greats. I'm trying to remember where in Utah. It'll probably come to me, but I can't think of it at this moment.
There are so Kevin Green and Ronnie Lott, and I mentioned Max Speedy earlier. They are just a few of the Hall of Fame athletes who grew up on Route 66. Probably the most famous athlete probably the first athlete people think of when they think of Route 66 is Mickey Mantle. Because he grew up in Commerce, Oklahoma. He played Little League Baseball from Joplin down through Oklahoma and Baxter Springs, Kansas, and Ray Schulk or Roy Schulk. Ray Schulk is from Litchfield, Illinois. And when you go into the Litchfield Route 66 Center, one of the first things you see is a sign honoring Baseball Hall of Famer Ray Schulk. He was on those early White Sox teams. In fact, he was a member of the Black Sox team. Okay, but unlike Shoeless Joe, Ray Schulk was put into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Pro Football Hall of Famer Jim Thorpe grew up in Stroud, Oklahoma, which is on Route 66. The basketball court or a gymnasium at Stroud High School is called Route 66 Coliseum. But then they have a 4-sided scoreboard, and above on the top of the scoreboard, it honors the Sac Fox tribes and Jim Thorpe.
Oh, that's cool.
But there's a statue of Jim Thorpe outside of the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. I think Jim Thorpe's greatest athlete to ever live, in my opinion. 2-time Olympic gold medalist, Pro Football Hall of Famer, played Major League Baseball. When he was done with football and baseball, he founded a professional basketball league for Native Americans. So Jim Thorpe is, in my opinion, the greatest athlete to ever live. But there are just so many legends that you don't think of with Route 66, and it's not just those guys I mentioned. It's Michael Jordan, standing out for the Chicago Bulls. United Center in Chicago is 2 blocks north of Route 66. 2 blocks. That's it. And there's a statue of Jordan there at United Center. There's a statue of Stan Mikita and Bobby Hull, the great Blackhawks players. Stan Musial down in St. Louis, the greatest Cardinal who ever played. Yogi Berra. You can visit Yogi Berra's childhood home in St. Louis. And so, it's just Route 66. People don't realize how much sports is there. The Softball Hall of Fame and Museum, the USA Softball Hall of Fame and Museum is in Oklahoma City, right next to where the women play the NCAA championship. And of course, Jackie Robinson making his name in Pasadena, not just at Pasadena City College, but then at UCLA. Outside of the Rose Bowl, there is a statue of Jackie Robinson in his Pasadena City College football uniform, because he was a star football player and track and field athlete at UCLA, in addition to to eventually becoming, a baseball Hall of Famer. So, and then I mentioned, Ronnie Lott and Kevin Green, but, Route 66 also includes the hometowns of Soccer Hall of Famer Raphael Tracy, Basketball Hall of Famer Andy Phillip, Football Hall of Famer George Musso, Kellen Winslow grew up in East St. Louis. So did Hank Bauer, a Baseball Hall of Famer. Jimmy Connors, the Tennis Hall of Famers, also from East St. Louis. Jackie Joyner Kersey is from East St. Louis. Baseball Hall of Famer Jim Bottomley is from Sullivan, Missouri. Football Hall of Famer Tommy McDonald is from Albuquerque. Raleigh Fingers and Soccer Hall of Famer Rick Davis grew up in Southern California. Fingers in Upland and Davis in Laverne. And then Bruce Matthews is from Arcadia. Golf Hall of Famer Ellsworth Vines is also from Pasadena. I don't know if he was a big Van Halen fan. I think he predated Van Halen. But, so there are, so much sports along Route 66. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. And I learned a lot from it. And it was a joy traveling Route 66 and writing a sports fan's guide to Route 66. And I really hope people take as much pleasure in reading it as I did producing it.
Well, hey, Ron, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I think we've had a great conversation, enlightening conversation. I've learned a lot. I was worried, if we didn't have this show, I'm on this streak of learning something new every day. I don't feel like I learned anything today until we started talking. So do appreciate
Well, happy to help.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, helping me obtain that streak. I can't tell you how many days it seems like I learned something every day, but today it just fell a little off. So, really appreciate you coming on. Everyone, you can go find Ron's book over. The link is in the description, Kindle or paperback, I believe, on Amazon. Yep. And you can also follow him at Ron_Clements. But that's going to do it for us. Ron, do you have anything, final thoughts or anything like that you want to throw out there?
Just if you do get the book, leave a review. I hope you enjoy it. Men's Journal Magazine. I mentioned this at the start of the show, but Men's Journal Magazine named it one of the best 20 new books of 2021. So that's pretty high praise. And I might have let out a holy when I read that list in May, and I was on it. So. Well, thank you so much. The reviews of the book have been great, and I can't thank the people who took the time to review the book. Route 66 legendary authors Jim Hinckley, Jim Ross, and Shelley Graham, and Jessica Dunham. But then, the sports writers like Jeff Perlman, who really liked the book. And so, I'm really, really proud of it. And thank you I can't believe we've talked for over an hour about this, but, so thank you so much.
Hey, absolutely. My pleasure, Ron. It's been fun, getting to interact with you on Twitter. We've had some great discussions, and now we've had a great discussion, face to face, so to speak. Albeit it's over, like StreamYard, but it's still really cool, and I do really appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll be in touch, of course. So, have you back sometime soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's been the show. You guys take care, and I will see you guys